There are a lot of lingering questions about COVID-19, matters that really haven't been settled. One of them is the role of ventilation. How much, how far can COVID actually travel? Take the example of this restaurant in the southern Chinese city of Guangzhou as an example. The suspected patient from the coronavirus's epicenter in Wuhan, a visitor. But the other 8 customers at this restaurant who later tested positive were nowhere near that person. They were not sitting close enough for what we would understand to be the routine droplet transmission. You think you're fine if you're 2 meters away. That's what we've been told in Canada. Some other countries, like Denmark, for example, say 1 meter is safe enough. We say 2 meters, probably safer. But these people were not sitting that close together. So how did that happen? Well, a group of mechanical engineers at the University of Alberta have said that the finding made sense to them because they say it's traveling through the building's ventilation systems. Joining me right now to talk about the role of ventilation, what can be done as people eventually go back to work, when they go to office buildings, how can we reduce the risk of COVID-19 transmission? I have Joël Primeau, Chief Mechanical Engineer of J.L. Richards and Associates Limited. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hi, Kristy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you.
So what do you think? A lot of people are focused on masks right now, hand washing, physical distancing. But what can we do when it comes to ventilation systems?
Well, first, I think it's important to underscore the importance of all these other measures. You can't replace any one measure with another. I think it'll take a village to defeat COVID, so we need to tackle everything all at once. But in terms of ventilation, I think there's a whole host of things that we certainly can address right now and look at in how our buildings operate and are maintained, and they ventilate our spaces.
Can you give me an example of something you think needs to be addressed?
Well, for starters, we've got to make sure that all of our systems work as they were intended. So, so this is kind of boring, but basic maintenance, I think every building owner, before they invite their workers back or their clients back into their buildings, should do a very thorough analysis and audit of the condition of their systems. Are their fans operating? Are there filters in place? Have the filters been replaced recently? Are there missing filters? All these things are things like, our drain pans draining properly. There's a whole host of things that we should do that seem really, really boring, but will have a big impact. Because at the end of the day, what we're trying to achieve with ventilation is introduce more outside air into the building to dilute the concentration of potential particles carrying a virus or bacteria.
When it comes to schools, and I know the conversation is still very open-ended, it's undecided right now whether the kids will be back 5 days a week, whether they'll be at home, whether it will be a hybrid. How well positioned are our schools when it comes to ventilation and ventilation safety?
Yeah, schools are especially problematic because they don't usually have very big budgets for maintenance and new construction. So there's they're not like an office tower or a hospital. They have fairly rudimentary systems, so that adds the problem. And of course the density of children in a room, they're packed in much closer together than they would be in an office. So a school presents all kinds of challenges. And fortunately, in Ontario, most schools have central ventilation. But it's not the case everywhere in Canada. So I think we're in Ontario. I think we're in better shape because we're already introducing a lot of outside air in the schools. But it's not the case everywhere.
But I'm thinking of government buildings right now, and I'm wondering how well that they'll do when we know that a lot of the federal government buildings are not aging well. For example, I'll refer back to a study that was released by the Treasury Board Secretariat back in January that showed nearly 30% of the federal government-owned buildings in our region were listed as critical or poor. That doesn't seem like a good sign.
No, it's not. It's not. I mean, the COVID situation is really drawing attention to a growing problem. When people are just getting headaches and not feeling well, or wanting to leave early because they're feeling their office is stuffy, that's a problem, but not a major problem. But when people start dying from a disease like COVID, then I think people are really paying attention. I don't think that the situation has been, made worse necessarily by COVID. It's just brought attention to a problem that's been there for a long, long time.
All right, we'll have to leave it there, unfortunately. We're done for time, but I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks, Kristy. Have a good day.
Joël Primeau, Chief Mechanical Engineer of J.L. Richards and Associates. Richard.